What is up, my brothers and sisters, my agents of respect? It's your boy Trey Johnson back with another episode of the No Disrespect But podcast. And so we want to start out by wishing a happy Father's Day to all the fathers and father figures out there. And tomorrow we're going to be celebrating Juneteenth. So all my brothers and sisters, you know, power be to you and happy Freedom Day. So we're excited about that. But on today's episode, man, just want to kind of cover a lot of things in the world of basketball. Obviously, we know the past few weeks have been exciting, or past month or so has been exciting. You got the Spurs getting number one overall pick, basically meaning they're going to be selecting Victor Wembanyama with the number one overall pick. So excited about the San Antonio Wembies as the resident Spurs fan here. Um, you've had, you know, whatever Zion Williamson has going on. Shout out to him being or soon to be father. We thought something that was beautiful, a gender reveal, saying he's going to be a girl dad. Something that was a beautiful moment ended up turning into a fiasco where we find out that, the current or the mother of his current soon to be child is a woman of many talents, and we find out that Zion is a fan of those many talents, and not just from that woman, uh, but from others as well. And we have a whole fiasco that yields itself or presents itself on the social media platform. And I'm not a Pels fan, so to speak, but being a New Orleans native, excited about the team and the direction. So obviously having a lot of discussions with uh, New Orleans and Louisiana natives and those who are Pels fans trying to figure out what's going on with their best player. I mean, the guy can't stay on the court, but he's staying in bedrooms with uh, XXX stars, if you catch my drift. And then obviously you have Ja Morant being suspended. You had the Denver Nuggets running the gauntlet to win an NBA championship, and that's really where I'm going to start, and then I'm going to end with some of the great news today. If you are a Phoenix Suns fan, and not so much good news, I guess, if you are a Washington Wizards fan. But just kind of starting with the Denver Nuggets. Now, I will be the first to tell you, my wife and I would say maybe the last 3 years, we've been doing playoff brackets and making predictions of how we think the playoffs are going to go, who do we think is going to end up on top. And I will say we both got it wrong, but for my wife, who doesn't even watch basketball, she got a lot more right than I did because I was done. My bracket was busted in the first round. I mean, I had, as you remember, my last episode talking about the era of Giannis will begin. I had him running the gauntlet, and I had Golden State running the gauntlet, and beating each other in the finals. And Giannis said, "Hey, dude, I'm sorry, but F your bracket," because he was out in the first round, albeit he had dealt with some injuries. Chris Middleton was just coming back from some injuries, but you're number one seed. You expect to make some noise, but they lost to the eventual Eastern Conference champion, the Miami Heat. And as it came to the Warriors, I mean, I just felt like, hey, they got a solid squad. I knew they were the sixth seed, but they had just gotten Andrew Wiggins back. I'm always going to trust Wardell, Stephen Curry Jr. in the playoffs. So I just thought, I just thought, hey, I trust them a lot more than other teams in the playoffs. And a lot of that is because you you kind of stick with the devil, a little bit. And so when it came to the Lakers and LeBron and AD's health, when it came to the Kings and their youth, when it came to the Grizzlies and their youth, but all of the outside distractions with Ja Morant and Dylan Brooks, I just didn't think they truly had what it took to be a champion. And to be quite honest with you, I thought Phoenix might be better. They dealt with some injuries, and then KD just getting into the mix. CP3 going down with an injury. DeAndre Ayton might as well be going down with the injury because he was absent. Um, and then, of course, when we get to Denver, they were the number one seed. And I will tell you, I did not have much respect for them. I knew they would win their first round matchup. But I felt like Minnesota might actually make some noise and had a chance to upset him. I want to tell you that to let you know just how little faith I had in Denver as a championship contender. And it really didn't have much to do with Joker, I mean, MVP candidate. But I just always felt like, hey, on the defensive end, he might disappear. He might get into some foul trouble. A lot of things revolved around him. I will tell you, I forgot about Jamal Murray. Not that I didn't remember that he was on the roster, but you took for granted that run he had in the bubble and how important he was to this team, the 2 years, or at least the 2 playoff runs he missed, because he got hurt 2 years ago, right before the playoffs started, and then missed the entire next season. And you take for granted Aaron Gordon, you take for granted Michael Porter Jr. and the addition of Bruce Brown and KCP. You take those things for granted. And I will tell you, I took that for granted. I did not have them making it past the second round. I believe, according to my bracket, I had Phoenix, or whether it was the Phoenix or the Clippers, I want to say it was Phoenix. I had Phoenix beating them in the second round. And some Phoenix Suns fans will tell you if Chris Paul doesn't go down, they may beat the Denver Nuggets, as we began to see that they were the only team that really gave the current NBA champions a run for their money throughout their whole playoff run. But like I said, I didn't, that was my bad. I'm the self-proclaimed sports guru, man, but I get it wrong sometimes. And I got it wrong this time. The star power, superstar power that Nikola Jokic himself brings. And then you have a guy who, I guess you can call him a Robin, but he's truly a Batman in his own right, being Jamal Murray. And then you just see that team collectively coached hard and well by Coach Mike Malone. And they did the damn thing. And, as I see kind of that makeup and as we're kind of going, into what's the NBA going to be? There's a new CBA that's going out, and some Pels fans who can't stand CJ McCollum have let it be known that they can't stand the new CBA agreement because they believe that it's going to be hurting teams in terms of being able to keep their stars. Well, if you really look at how the league was going, they really wanted to eliminate the likelihood of super teams. And if you wanted to go that route as an organization, which we'll get to in a second, there will be consequences for that. You can't have 3 premier talents on your roster and try to get the cream of the crop free agents, vets to build that championship roster. So really putting an onus on organizations to, one, draft well, develop well, be responsible with your money. I mean, even small market teams that are notoriously cheap, like my San Antonio Spurs, you will have to spend money in free agency. You can't cheapskate your way, but also drafting and development of players is going to be important throughout this next, CBA cycle. And, seeing what Denver was kind of able to do and able to build in a way you feel that they can withstand that with that new CBA. They still have that core group together, guys that have reasonable deals, so to speak, with their value, and they can continue to compete for championships. And I want to segue that to my San Antonio Spurs. We're kind of in that situation now where you're getting a premier draft prospect in Victor Wembanyama, affectionately known as Wemby. And, you got guys like Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell. You might be bringing Trey Jones back on a reasonable deal. You got guys you drafted last year in Malachi Branham and Blake Wesley and Jeremy Sohan. And you have guys like Zach Collins coming back. You have a Doug McDermott, who might be a trade piece, who knows, but he's still a vet. He's been the best shooter on our team. And then there's discussions of, do you bring a Russ Westbrook in on a 2-year, $30-40 million deal that can kind of help this team? Because, with Victor, he's not coming to rebuild. This guy is coming to win and win now. Will we win a championship in the first couple of years? No. But will we do things roster construction wise to have a competitive roster where we're trying to get to the playoffs? Yes. And I believe that's important. You've seen it with us. You saw it with the Memphis Grizzlies when they drafted John Morant. As soon as they drafted him, it was, hey, let's see what we can do to get some winning. And that helped. They're a premier team when he's on. And the Pelicans were kind of going that way, but dealing with Zion's health and even Brandon Ingram's health to a degree, it's kind of hurt what they're doing, but they're still right there. All they need is, 55, 60 games from their two best players. And we're talking about a potential Western Conference candidate or Western Conference representative in the NBA Finals next year. You see it with Boston and the way they've gotten guys like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Grant Williams, Robert Williams being guys that are part of a championship roster, but guys that you drafted and developed well and got them on reasonable deals. They didn't necessarily price you out, even though JT and JB, as far as the Celtics are concerned, are about to price themselves, but they've developed themselves into superstars. So that's okay. That's what you want as an organization. You want your guys to not only play to the level, but play even above it to where, hey, I'm going to have to pay him, but I want to pay him that top dollar. And so as a Spurs fan, I'm loving what we're doing. I mean, watching them all my life, I felt like we wrote the book on it, where you get a generational talent and you build around that and you don't waste time. And it's always good when you're bringing that generational talent into an organization that already has a history of not just winning, but just professionalism. And then him, Wemby in particular, having played for a team owned by Tony Parker, who has come from that mold, you already know he's bringing some of those same traits with him. He's not something we have to build in within him. So thinking about where the Spurs go from here, I'm excited because I know tanking was really a one-time thing. At the very least, we're going to look to see what the other young guys along with Wemby look like. And you start to say, okay, this guy might not work, this guy might not work. Obviously, I hope we learn from the Kawhi situation and are actively working with Wemby's camp on some of the things that he wants as a superstar and some of the players that he wants. Can we get everybody? No, but you want to make sure you're displaying to your superstar that you're trying, right? And so I hope we can get back to that, where I felt like we've never really tried, even with Tim Duncan. I don't think we've ever really tried to go after somebody, and that presented an issue at times. He almost decided to go to the Orlando Magic, partly because he wanted to be near family, but still, I want to know and believe that you're giving me the best chance to win. And we happen to win 5 championships in 20 years with him. And then, you get the Kawhi situation. And I think he may have wanted or had some of those same questions that Tim had. And yes, he wanted to go home, but also as an organization, you got to be willing to appease your superstar. And whatever they want, if you can make it happen, at least try. Even if you can't make it happen, you at least show goodwill that you're trying. And so I'm hoping that we're able to do that same thing with Wemby, because again, the Celtics are doing that with Jason Tatum. The Denver Nuggets are doing that with Nikola Jokic. At this point in time, the Lakers are going to be doing that with LeBron and Anthony Davis and so on and so forth. We can go through every superstar and the handle that they have on their teams. And so I'm excited as a Spurs fan, and I'm excited mainly because I see where the league is going. For, I would say, 2008 really, sparked it off with kind of the super team era. I know everybody really likes to point to LeBron going to the Miami Heat, in his prime, Dwayne Wade in his prime, Chris Bosh in his prime. And I understand that. I know it's a little different, but the term Big Three really got coined when the Celtics already having Paul Pierce, Danny Ainge committing highway robbery and getting Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen, and that they're rewarded with a championship year one, and they make it to 2 finals in 3 years together, which was something they wanted, to have those opportunities. So, or 2 championships in their first 3 years, 2 title opportunities, and they cashed in on one, batting 500 against the Lakers, against Kobe's Lakers. And, They were a one-off at first. I mean, obviously you start using the term big three. So then that gets centered towards the Spurs and what they had with Tim Duncan and Tony Parker and Manu, but it was never really coined that until Boston came alive. And then a couple years later, you have Bron with the infamous decision. He goes to Miami. And really since that, because Miami had such a great run, you started seeing where superstars were doing this. And you know, Bron leaves Miami, goes to Cleveland, forms another big three with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. Um, then you see, you know, the Warriors kind of already had a big three of their own with Dre, Steph, Clay, but then they bring in, you know, a KD. And there was a run, especially during kind of the LeBron prime years where he's making all these finals. It was always a big three, a super team, so to speak. Three of the top 10 to 15 players on one roster. And then some high-end veterans. Like, think about it. Miami, they had Shane Battier, you had Udonis Haslem, you had Mike Miller. Like, come on. Then you go to Cleveland and you get Iman Shumpert and J.R. Smith. Think about LeBron's tenure in LA. I mean, even though I didn't really think they were a super team, but you got him, you got AD, and then you bring in a Dwight Howard, you know, you bring in a JaVale McGee, you bring in a Rajon Rondo, so on and so forth. And then again, you see the Warriors, they get a KD, but they still got an Andre Iguodala. They still have a Sean Livingston. They still have a Maurice Spates. They still have a David West. So again, high-end veteran guys that are contributing to what we perceive as a big three and a super team. And I would say that Warriors last year with KD, where KD tore his Achilles and you know, got hurt before the finals, but then actually his Achilles popped in the finals. And you saw Kawhi with Toronto, Kyle Lowry, Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet. Not really a super team in your mind, but just a really good squad led by a superstar in Kawhi Leonard. Cash in and win an NBA title. And from that point on, you've kind of really been seeing that the past 5 years or so, because that happens. Then again, you have LeBron and AD, you know, two top 10 players. But again, it's really just them. And then you add collective talent around them. Then you have a Giannis and Chris Middleton. You add then you add one of the best defensive players. I would say pound for pound, the best defensive player in the NBA, Drew Holiday. And then they go on a championship run at the same time. Their opponent, the Phoenix Suns, CP3, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and then a collection of talent around them vying for an NBA championship. And then after that, you get the Golden State Warriors. And again, led by Steph, not really having another superstar on the team, but having elite role player talent around him, and they win the championship. And in this year, you see Denver do the same thing, led by two stars, one superstar, one star, and they have these role players, the Michael Porter Jr.'s, the Aaron Gordons, the Bruce Browns, the Jeff Greens, the Christian Brauns of the world. And it leads collectively to a championship. And what I mean by that is the league has shown you that they are transitioning back to teams. Not that players are important. Yes, players sell tickets, they sell jerseys, they sell the business. We've always understood that. It's always been the case. But teams played a role in this whole cash cow. And at some point along the way, we stopped caring about teams. If you talk to the average NBA fan today, they will tell you who their favorite players are. And this, you have to really come to a really hardcore person that's been in this thing for about 20 years or so that will say, hey, this is my favorite team, and these are some of my favorite players around the league. Like, I'm a Spurs fan. I still have favorite players around the league. I like T-Mac. I liked AI. I liked Ray Allen. I liked Paul Pierce. I liked Shaq when he left the Lakers because I hated everything Lakers. I respected Kobe, hated him, but I respected him until he retired. But what I mean by that is you always had, I have favorite players, but my loyalty is to my team. And somewhere along the way, we lost that. And I believe the NBA has been trying to get that back because it's really hard to sell the brand when it's so player-centric compared to the NFL, which always wipes them out the water because as much talent is in the NFL, they will always be centered around the shield and around the teams. And that's where the fandom lies. No matter who wears that jersey, they can go get a painter and put them and have them as the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. And that person's life will change forever because everyone will swear they are a Hall of Famer. They are the next Joe Montana, the next Troy Aikman. I'm telling you what I know and what we see all the time in the NFL. And I believe that's what the NBA has been missing. And what they're doing now is we're going to still capitalize on the star power, right? But we want these teams. You saw a beautiful game where, yeah, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, they're the stars of this operation, but you see Aaron Gordon go for 30 in an NBA Finals game where he's the center guy. Like, those are things that people are starting to pay attention to. And that kind of leads me to the news today where the Phoenix Suns, who were really already strapped for depth-wise after a mega trade during the previous season for Kevin Durant, they make another mega trade, so to speak, where they send Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, who's a valuable three-point shooter on their team, valuable depth guy, and a handful of second-round picks because they don't have any first-round picks, apparently, to the Washington Wizards with Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal, one of the best scorers I've ever seen, one of the best two guards in the league. Definitely going to give Phoenix a scoring punch. But when you look at it, it's, okay, what are we doing? And it's always funny, you know, we talk about Kevin Durant and his legacy and how he was tampered with or stained when he made the move to Golden State. And, you know, at the time, it's like, okay, he's a free agent. I mean, he had that right. He made that decision. In a way, media and even some sports talking heads drove him that way. You know, go to a team that passes the ball. Go to a team, you don't have to be the guy. Go to a team with good leadership. And he did that. They were the Warriors were the best team. He made that decision. But I believe for the past 5 years, Kevin Durant's been chasing that. He's been chasing whatever he had in the Bay, and he hasn't been able to find it. Tried to form a super team with Kyrie and James Harden, then tries to form a super team with Devin Booker and Chris Paul. And now he's trying to form a super team with Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. And what I need us to understand is, and no disrespect, but the super team is dead. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how talented you are. The NBA and the organizations in the NBA, all 30 teams at this point in time, for the most part, understand that team basketball, a roster filled with championship level players, led by maybe one or two superstars, is what's going to get you over the hump. Look at the past 4 or 5 champions, the Raptors. You got a superstar in Kawhi Leonard, but you have a star in Kyle Lowry. You have elite role players like a Fred VanVleet or a Pascal Siakam. You have those guys. Starting 5 years ago, the NBA made a shift. And it seems that the only person that has not realized this is Kevin Durant. Look at it. They had the Warriors going. I mean, they were linked to some big stars. It was, oh, the Warriors are going to try to go get Giannis. They're going to try to go get Embiid. They're going to try to. The Warriors decided, hey, what got us here, what made us attractive for Kevin Durant was building the culture. I think what Giannis is doing in Milwaukee, he's focused on building that culture because guess what? If they compete again, a top seed again, why can't I go after a Dame? Why wouldn't Dame want to leave Portland to come play with me? Why wouldn't a James Harden want to come play with me? Why wouldn't a Jimmy Butler want to come play with me? Why would I have to leave? And so you're starting to see that stars on some of these teams, they've gotten the message. And again, it seems that Kevin Durant is the only superstar in this league that has not gotten it. I would say even the LeBron James, yes, they were linked to some high-end potential trade targets and free agents like a Kyrie Irving when he was having this mess with the Nets. But they said, you know what? We don't need that. Get us a D'Angelo Russell. Get us a Rui Hachimura. Give us a Malik Beasley. Give us a Jared Vanderbilt. Give us some guys that can come in. Now, granted, Bron and AD had some injury issues, so it was kind of hard for them to really put it together in the postseason. But you walked away saying they don't really need a superstar. They just need a little bit more collective talent around their two stars and maybe another guy that can kind of come in and take the pressure off of Bron to where he can go and be a second option or a third option, something like that, similar to what CJ McCollum was supposed to be for the Pels. But you're starting to see this. And when I got the news today that, when I first heard the Suns were looking at Bradley Beal, well, I thought the price point would be high. And I said, well, how can they get him? Who are they going to be able to build around those three? Now you have three ball-dominant guys, not that they can't share, but nobody plays a lick of defense. You still have DeAndre Ayton, who has a max contract that you decided to match as the Phoenix Suns, instead of letting him go to Indiana the way he wanted to. So he's a guy that's playing a little bit unhappy. And how long will he be in Frank Vogel's good graces? We know that Frank Vogel isn't afraid to put somebody on the bench, regardless of the amount of zeros on their check. If you're not here to really help the team win in any way and every way, you're not going to play on Frank Vogel's team. And that's just the truth of the matter. And he's always been that type of coach. So what are we doing with Ayton? We got four guys, but, when I look at it, and when I look at what Kevin Durant's been trying to build since he's left the Bay, no disrespect, but everybody's not a Batman, and that's Kevin Durant included. And these are not my words. He said these words. He wants to just hoop. That leadership thing, that's not what he does. That's not what he wants to do. He just wants to play basketball. He wants to drop 30, 35 a night and help his team win in that way. But there's more to leadership and building a championship team than what you can put in the box score. It's the intangibles, man. It's the vocal leadership. It's the active leadership, the actions that you put forth. And it just seems like certain players still want to take the easy way out, and you can't do that. You cannot cheat this game, especially when the league is taking a different direction. Do I think the Phoenix Suns will be a good team? I do. Do I think they will win a lot of games? I do. Do I think they will be a top 3 or 4 seed? I do. But do I think they have what it takes to run the gauntlet of an NBA postseason and make it past the second round, the conference finals, win a championship? I do not. Reason being, the days of old where you can have 3 players, and at this point you have 4 players with massive contracts on your team, and you have the ability to go get high-end free agents who are vets who want to win championships, and you can pay them a pretty bit of money to help add to that championship caliber that you have. Those days are gone. The Players Association and the owners, or the board of governors that they're called now, made it a point to where that didn't happen again. Main point being because, again, Bradley Beal, who just signed an extension last year, 1 year into his massive extension, wants a trade. James Harden, into an extension, wants a trade from Houston, and then forces his way out of the Nets because he doesn't want to be there anymore. Kevin Durant, 1 year into an extension, decides he's had it to hell with management and wants a new direction. Those things are not going to fly anymore. It will happen, of course, because it's still a player's league to a degree. There will be things that stars can get away with or that stars can demand. But how often is that going to happen? Look at the players coming up the pipeline. Who has that cachet, really? And keep in mind, you need a team around you. Who's going to anchor? The reason why the Suns got throttled in 6 against the Denver Nuggets, you want to know why? Because they couldn't guard 15. They had nobody. They didn't have enough bodies to throw at him. They had small forwards and shooting guards trying to play in the post against him. And then not to mention, you had the Jamal Murrays, the Bruce Browns, the Michael Porter Juniors of the world that you had to defend. So it didn't matter how many points you scored, because guess what? Those guys, the Nuggets, They built a team that could score but also defend. Look at the NBA Finals. Those weren't high-scoring games. You know why? Because those were two defensive-minded teams. So what do we have here? What are we doing? Why are we still believing that this model can work? One, the model can't work if there's no Batman. You can't have three Robins and call it a super team. There's no way. Because when? Show me in Devin Booker's career, show me in Kevin Durant's career, show me in Bradley Beal's career where they've elevated the talent around them. You won't find it. So they're supposed to rally rookies and second round picks and vets that are on their 8 team in 10 years. That's who they're supposed to elevate. But they've never did. They couldn't even elevate the stars on their team. You can point to me and say, well, hey, Jimmy Butler, he did it. Well, I'll show you what he elevated talent. He demanded more of Cat and Andrew Wiggins, and they made the postseason for the first time since 2004. And I want to say that was maybe 15 years or something like that. Double-digit years they had gone without making the playoffs since KG had left, and he demanded more. Then he goes to Philly. He demands more of Joel Embiid. He demands more of Ben Simmons. Yeah, Joel had a little rough go about it in the playoffs against the Raptors, but guess what? He still values that leadership that Jimmy Butler instilled in him, and he wishes that Jimmy was his teammate. He was so powerful of a teammate that Ben Simmons couldn't stand it, and we saw what happened. Ben Simmons ended up quitting anyway. It had nothing to do with Jimmy. It was all him. Then he goes to the Heat, and he takes a bunch of undrafted guys. No offense to undrafted guys, but you just know, sports talk-wise, you know what it means. And they make it to 2 NBA Finals in 4 years. That's leadership. That's somebody who's an alpha. That's somebody who's a Batman here. When has Kevin Durant done that? Show me. You can't. Russell Westbrook's already an alpha. Steph Curry, already an alpha. You didn't make them. They were made men. They came ready. Devin Booker, okay. Chris Paul, alpha. Alpha male. You saw what he did in New Orleans. You saw what he did with the Clippers. You saw what he did with his 1 year in OKC. You know what he did with Houston before his growing pop. Alpha. Bradley Beal, John Wall, alpha. You ain't did nothing since he wasn't your teammate. Russell Westbrook comes in, gets you to the playoffs, has to go crazy, animal, alpha. Bradley Beal didn't, you had an MVP year, but you had that because Russell Westbrook was your teammate. Russell Westbrook is an alpha that makes his teammates better. You didn't make Kuz better. You didn't make Denny better. You didn't make Spencer Dinwiddie better. You're not making Gafford better. So again, you're having a bunch of Robins, and nothing's wrong with being a Robin. But guess what? I have a problem with Robins that think they're Batman and they never win anything, and they're ruining the game. Like I said, you're going to win a lot of games. You're going to make it to the playoffs. You're going to be a top 3 or 4 seed. But when it's time, you don't have enough because you can't pour into the guys on those sidelines. And if you have an off day and your running mates have an off day, who's going to pick each other up? Who's going to be the one that says, you know what? Stop the madness. I got it. You can't. They can't. Because here's the thing about a Batman. A Batman knows when they can let Robin take the lead. But a bunch of Robins always want to be Batman. And y'all are going to see. This time next year, we're going to be talking about where do the Phoenix Suns go next? Because Devin Booker is going to be looking for some more money. Kevin Durant, he's going to be older. Bradley Beal, he's going to be older. We know the last 2, they've been having some injury issues. Kevin Durant, even more. DeAndre Ayton, yeah, he's young, but is his heart in it? We're going to be having these same conversations. And it's going to be another team that has understood the assignment that it's about maybe 1 or 2 stars and putting talent around them, it's going to be a team like that that's going to be hosting the O'Brien Trophy, the Larry O.B. And we're going to be talking about them as champions. We're going to be talking about the Phoenix Suns as a footnote in their run to a title. And that's going to be what it is, especially with this new CBA. You can't add more premier talent. They'll be lucky this year if they don't move DeAndre Ayton. They can't even give somebody the mid-level exception. So therefore, they're going to have to get guys that want to take the vet minimum in this economy. You're going to find a legit vet that wants to win. You're going to take a vet minimum for you. I can take a vet minimum and play with LeBron and AD. I can take a vet minimum and play with Giannis. I can take a vet minimum and play with Embiid. I can take a vet minimum and play with Zion and B.I. and C.J. McCollum. I have options. I don't have to. I don't have to play for the Phoenix Suns. I can take the vet minimum and go play with Jokic and Jamal Murray and just step in when I need it. Play my role. So that's where I wanted the meat of this conversation to go. You know, we talk about the Denver Nuggets, and I love what they do, and I hope that translates to my team. You see I'm wearing the colors right now. I'm excited because I know we wrote the book on it. It's just time for us to start a new chapter with it and just add some little things that we got to do more. But it bugs me a little bit when I see that somebody just doesn't get it. You know how everybody understands the assignment? And there's that one person in class that just doesn't get it, and we got to start all over. Not that it's wrong for them to need the help, yeah. But sometimes you just want to move on. Sometimes you just want them to get it. And in this case, I want Kevin Durant because he's the one that's really driving this whole super team thing. Let's be honest, because he did it with the Nets. He ran to Golden State, which was fine as a free agent. He ran to the Nets, which was fine as a free agent, but wanting to build a super team. It didn't work. Some his fault, some not. Goes to Phoenix, gets hurt. Not really his fault. Freak accident, wet spot on the floor, but gets hurt. They don't really do much in the playoffs. Yeah, they win their first round matchup, but good Lord, it's because Kawhi got hurt towards ACL. They were looking like they didn't even belong in the same court as the Clippers. Let's be honest with ourselves. And then you decide, okay, I'm going to take one of the best passers in all of basketball and in basketball history. Let's talk about it. Trade him. Yeah, I get it. He's off injured, but I'm going to trade him for another ball dominant guy that has never made a teammate better in his life. Never. The only people he's made better is those kids he was talking to at the camp. But as far as professional basketball player, he hasn't. So we're gonna bundle all these three Robins together, and we're gonna try to make a championship contender with Josh Okogie, Cameron Payne, DeAndre Ayton. I mean, whoever you can convince to bypass playing with Giannis, Jokic, LeBron, Kawhi for that matter, Jimmy, Joel, whoever you can convince to play with you over those guys, be my guest. But I don't think that's going to be a roster you want to write home about. And I love Frank Vogel, but he is not the coach to overcome that. We saw that's the reason why he got fired. So we'll see. We'll see. But I will tell you right now, we will revisit this a year from now, this time. And we're going to be having a conversation about Phoenix, and we're going to have a conversation about the NBA champion at that time, which I can assure you will not be the Phoenix Suns. And that's on that. So with that being said, like I always say, if I offended anybody, that's a good thing. It's an opportunity for me to learn. It's an opportunity for you to teach me. All I ask is that you keep it respectful. Peace.